Western Conference Podcast, brought to you by Dos Caras Tequila, our brand new sponsor here at the Western Conference Podcast. And in the building, I have the president of Ineffable Records in the room, Mr. Adam Gross. How we doing, brother?
All good, man. How you doing?
And when I say president, I'm talking about of the independent, vertically integrated modern music company. Come on, see, you got to say it right. You can't just say indie label, right?
Right. We're more than just a label.
Yeah.
I'm the president of our label division.
Got it.
But we also have a live division and a management division. So we have a record label where we're working with artists, we're working the actual release of the music.
Got it.
Then we have management where you're overseeing all aspects of someone's career. So music, merchandise, live, everything. And then we have the live arm. So we have festivals that we have ownership in. And we have
with Cali Roots and Levitate as well.
Levitate. And then we have a bunch of venues that we have ownership in as well. So we have 10 venues that we own or operate. So, you know, there's three different main parts of the company. I oversee our label. My partners oversee some of the other stuff. And we all work together to build everything together.
Like, this is like an old-fashioned record label. Like, it has the arms to it. And it's like, when you talk about indie label, we're going to get into this. What's the difference in your quick, saying between indie and major?
A major label means that it's either Universal, Sony, or Warner.
Got it.
So, like, at a very basic level, there's three of them. And then there's a lot of subsidiaries and companies that fall below those. And then from there, there's, all sorts of main differences. I think, as you mentioned before this, like a lot of shit that I've been talking about a lot recently. I think the majors have a different focus generally than indies. And, it's more of a kind of venture capital model, as in you're throwing money into a bunch of different things, and most of them aren't going to work. And maybe one of them works, and then you win. So then all the other things that you're putting money into kind of just get left by the side if they're not popping in a couple weeks or a couple months.
Wait, Adam. Wait. You got to slow it down, because I do definitely want artists and people that are coming up that are in the music industry to really take hold and take grasp to what this podcast is today. Because I've seen you on your Instagram. Follow me at Adam G, or as Adam.G, and I will put it up on the bottom. But you've been going in, because a lot of people that's been hitting me in the music industry say, man, Adam has a lot to say, which is a good thing, that you're just trying to use this platform to kind of get it out there, which goes to my next question. How does social media kind of like change the whole game between being an indie label and major now?
Yeah, I think the reality is that there are certain principles of audience growth that anybody can learn on every single platform. And it's not just social media, right? It's also understanding how to utilize email addresses of your fans or phone numbers of your fans, right? Because ultimately, each social media platform has its time of peak engagement. Also, I'm talking, you said beforehand, I'm going to tie your hands up. You can't speak.
We were going to tie Adam. Igor told me to tie his hands up, but it's fine.
My hands are already moving over here.
It's a podcast, so I like it.
That I'm saying something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's these certain principles of audience growth across all platforms. And you can't be relying on just one platform, because you never know if it's going to be banned by the government.
If you're just like focusing on just your Instagram following and not the other, TikTok and everything else, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice at that time.
Absolutely. And same with streaming: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Pandora, Amazon, Tidal, every single one of them, right? So, this concept is that every single platform speaks its own language, and every artist can learn those principles of audience growth through the internet. Like the answers are just all on the internet. And what I'm trying to get out there is that it's like, you don't necessarily need us. Right? It would be great if we worked together, but we can't work with everybody. But everybody can learn these tools.
The tools are out there.
So they're not reliant on some outside force. Or people just think, if I get this one hit, everything's going to change. But a lot of people get that one hit, and then no one hears from them again, and they didn't do what they needed to do to make those people a part of their actual
Then they're known
fans.
as the one-hit wonder.
Right.
And then you don't want to be that guy or group. But tell us how you even got started in this music industry. I mean, you growing up in the Bay Area, I seen that, it all started in Oakland at the studio where Green Day, kind of, when you talk about indie, you don't get more indie than that. But tell us how you came about in the music business.
So I actually grew up in New York City.
Okay, New York City.
I'm a New York kid.
Yeah.
That's why I talk like how I talk. My hands.
The hands make sense now.
So, I've been in the Bay for almost 5 years, 4.5 years.
Got it.
I got some, Bay in me, but, I'm a New York kid originally.
Got it.
So the company was started before my time. I was probably like 11 or something.
See?
So Thomas and Igor, my partners, are the two co-founders.
And shout out Igor, shout out Thomas, man. That's family right there.
And they were roommates in college together. And they started throwing some shows, throwing some parties. They had a friend who wanted to like book some shows, who's an artist.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, how hard could that be? And then, Thomas was like, well, actually pretty hard.
Pretty hard, yeah, exactly.
So they started promoting shows. Thomas became the, assistant to the talent buyer at the Catalyst in Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, yeah.
So over time, built these different things. So eventually becomes the talent buyer for the Catalyst. And even before that, Collie Buddz came around. Collie Buddz came around.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Adam.
I did, yeah. So, Collie Buddz came around, and that was the first Ineffable client.
Yeah.
And
shout out Collie Buddz, man. That's fam right there.
Absolutely.
Huge artist.
Huge artist. One of the best guys.
Yeah.
Like you'll deal with, and artists are not always the easiest to deal with in general.
Man.
I'm not naming any names, so nobody
he just gave me a list under the desk.
About you or no. But so Collie was originally a major label artist.
Yeah.
So he was a Sony artist, and that first self-titled album with Come Around and Blind to You and Mamacita,
all the hits,
Tomorrow's Another Day, a bunch of big records, were on that record. So Collie was kind of fresh off of no longer being a major label artist, and Thomas and Igor were like, well, we're going to put forward this new model for you. We're going to go out and play shows. So they booked him 27 shows in 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And just started calling different promoters. They didn't necessarily, they were like, I don't know, 22, 23.
Just cold calling, trying to see where they can get him a show at.
Yeah. So got him all these shows, and then said, well, we're going to start putting your music on MySpace. We're going to start putting your music out there for free. We're going to start selling merch. So we're going to bring all of these things together so that you can plant your seeds and water them over time and build your own garden.
Yes.
Look at that metaphor.
Come on, you just coming with it today. I see you, Adam. You got all these metaphors coming out the way.
But so, it was like, that's how it all started, with kind of Collie Buddz. And so from there, the management division grew and the live division grew for a long period of time. I came around in 2018.
Got it.
How that came about was basically I was bugging the shit out of Thomas on email, and I was just in college at the time. And, I was like, I have these ideas and different ways I think we could do things, and I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And kind of kept going back and forth. And,
Now, was that a cold email to Thomas as well? Okay.
Cold email. Didn't have anything. And there was like random different like entrepreneurial music things that I had been doing in college. So I was like, oh, I did this. And I would, pitch him a couple different
Got to show the credibility.
Working on. Yeah. Like I wasn't just like, hey, I'd love to work in the music business.
Exactly.
I love music. And
you wanted to show him that you was credible of what you were talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
So eventually, I was like, all right, well, we have this song coming out, Stick Figure featuring Slightly Stupid. It's called World on Fire.
Man.
It's coming out in June, which was going to be like a couple weeks before I graduated. He's like, if you can do everything that you say you can do for this song, then we'll create this, new kind of division overseeing kind of label services for our management clients.
So you kind of wanted to pull your card and say, okay, let's try
it out.
What you could do with this song.
And that's the music business is like, like you have to prove your value.
Yeah.
And if you can prove your value in the music business, then the sky is the limit, right?
Say it again, Adam. Say it again. Prove it.
Prove your value, and then the sky's the limit. Now, because that's the thing is like the music business is super entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Like things are changing at all times.
Especially now,
Especially now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that you consume music in March of 2023 and the way that you discover music and the best way to spend marketing dollars and the best way to A&R and all these things is going to be different in like 3 months.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's constantly changing.
Constantly changing every day. So, that's the way that works. But anyway, back to that situation. So the World on Fire song came out, which was a really lucky first song for me to get to work on.
I was about to say, I mean, it's pretty easy at that point. But for a fan of the music, like, if you did not get a song that was as easy, it's on you to kind of say, I can still try to do what I could do with it. Yeah.
And the funny thing is the second song was Collie Buddz Love and Reggae.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But
Another classic.
Yeah. But, basically from there, I just rolled my sleeves up and, obviously had a lot of, resources and things already that existed from Thomas and Igor and Matt and everyone else that was there. But I was like, all right, let me just go out and try to create new relationships, try to figure out what's working, what's not working with streaming, and just kind of figure that all out and make that an in-house thing that we could do.
Yes.
And then from that process, we realized we could launch the label arm of the company, which has now existed for, I guess, 4 years almost.
Yeah.
And then we've built that pretty quickly. over the past years as well.
And what did you do to show and prove yourself with the single? Like, what was it about the single that you said, okay, I got to do these steps to try to make sure people are kind of hearing this song?
It was, anything from, it's interesting because even 2018 is different than 2023, right? So, like, I was getting blog stories and stuff like that. And then I was, going over and figuring out if there was any, like, radio stuff. And then I was going and figuring out any Spotify playlisting. And that started with, like, listener playlists. So, like, you or I can have a playlist and then people can follow it. And then that can gain. So I was, like, trying to find all these listeners who had those playlists. And then, same thing on the other DSPs, trying to build those relationships. And, one of the ultimate things we wanted to do was to get on a Spotify editorial playlist. Because at that time, there hadn't been a Stick Figure song on a Spotify editorial playlist. So
that's crazy too.
It was like, this whole scene, I mean, we've it's been something we've had to fight to get understood. Yeah. Because on the live side, people understand it because the numbers are there. So you pull up the Polestar data, which is like the platform that shows ticket sales and stuff, and you can see like, oh, okay, wow, well, Stick Figure sells out Red Rocks in 24 hours.
Geographically, exactly.
So a lot of these bands are selling tickets, but then you have to make the case, which is what has been a huge focus of mine, is proving like, all right, well, this is existing crazily like this at the live side, so digitally, let's get it supported too on all the different platforms, so they understood that there's a market for it, because people don't necessarily just support it because like out of the goodness of people's hearts, although there are fighters and people who support the music different platforms. You really have to make the case that like this is something that you're missing and that you should support more of. So that was a big part of that, and eventually that song did get on Spotify editorial playlist, and just kind of built those relationships from there. But even getting that first playlist was like a crazy process that involved sending tweets out and fans replying to those tweets and loading up people's mentions and sending.
See, and I like how when you say sending tweets, like, because there's so many elements to it.
Oh yeah.
There's so many things. Like if you miss one avenue, that might have been the avenue that would have got you there.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think a lot of these artists, they miss that because they're thinking they're doing something in one platform when they're missing all these other avenues that they're not getting. And I talk to a lot of younger artists that always ask me, how do I get my music played? I said, dude, there's so much to it. That's why when I was talking to you on Instagram, I was like, bro, we got to get this information on a podcast, because I think a lot of artists are missing these aspects of it.
I like to think about like a baseball analogy. Like, so one is like when you go up to you want to have as many at bats as possible. And each time you go up to the plate, like you want to have a chance to hit a home run. But if you don't hit a home run and all you're doing is trying to hit a home run, then you're probably going to keep striking out every time, right? So you want to be trying to get a single, get a double, get a triple. If you keep having that consistency with that swing, eventually you'll hit a home run, right? So
or just those at bats.
Or you'll get a walk or whatever, right? So my thing is you take those at bats and then you do what you can to improve your odds. So your batting average, your on base percentage, like what are you doing every single thing possible? So for a baseball player, that's, strength and endurance, that's studying the analytics, that's the feel of it, that's, all, taking the lessons from the right people. Like there's all these different things. It's not just one thing. And so I think for a release of music, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, one is, are you learning how to build the audience on every single platform? Are you spending hundreds of hours on a song and then you're spending 30 minutes on the marketing of it? Are you spending thousands of hours on the song and then releasing it the next day?
And that goes back to the artist. Like, do you feel like a lot of that has to fall back on the artist or the artist and his team? Because I think artists, everyone out there can be an artist. But in order to do these things, you kind of got to have a team behind you. And that's what we're talking about, having a good team. You get further with a team because he can just focus on what he's good at. And then everybody kind of has their strengths to kind of say, okay, you focus to see what we can do to get into this market and that market. What's the importance of that in this game?
I mean, look, the team is super important. But I will say, like, at the end of the day, the artist is a small business owner, and they're the CEO of their business, and they're the owner of their business.
And they're going to go as far as that they push their business.
No one's going to care more than them. So, the reality is, like, most managers get fired.
Yeah.
So almost.
But tell us about this. Elaborate on that. Because I think, why do you think the managers get fired? Because their vision is not the same as the artist? Or the push isn't the same as the artist?
It's a good question. I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, obviously some managers get fired who don't deserve to get fired, of course. I think there's, it's on one end, it's an easy person to blame when things aren't going well.
Yeah. Blame the manager.
Blame the manager. It's an easy person to blame.
Yeah, exactly. That's the easy out.
Easy.
Yeah.
Two, it's like you could be an artist for like 20, 30 years. Like your brain is changing, who you are is changing,
And you as an artist, like if you're an older artist, you have to adapt to the times. And we're talking about this because it's changing constantly, daily, almost minutes by the minutes, where these older artists, their mindsets, I see, just personally, that they have to adapt, and they don't like the adaptation part of it. They don't want to say, oh, I got to do all that just to get my music heard. It's like, unfortunately, yeah, because in this market, you have to do all these little things to get what you want done, right?
For sure. And I think, that's the interesting thing, because if you're a manager, you're a good manager, you're thinking about long-term vision.
Yeah.
The longevity. Every decision you make should be weighing the two, right? Everyone needs to make money. The artists need to make money today. But oftentimes, what makes you the most money today might not be the thing that helps make you the most money in 3, 10, 20 years, right? Like building assets for yourself and not having to play 150 shows when you're 60 years old.
Yeah.
Like you want to be in a position where you play shows out of love at a certain age.
And there's exclusivity to it, where it's exclusive to have you actually come out and play a show, right?
For sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so I think, that even the fear of being fired can lead some managers to not do what's in their artist's best long-term interest because they're commissioning whatever they do up front. So, if you can get whatever, let's just, if someone's like, all right, here's $100,000 today, or they're like, or here's, $20,000 a year for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
If you're the artist, you might take that $20,000 a year for the next 10 years. If you're the manager, you're going to take that $100,000 today that you can commission.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not shitting on managers because there's tons of good managers.
Not all the managers are in the comments right now, so they're like, wait a minute. Yeah.
But I just think it's an important thing to align, because that fear can lead to the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And then that fear can lead to the thing that might actually get them fired because they're not doing what's in their long-term interest. So it is a really interesting dynamic, and there's really nothing quite like being a manager. Like there's nothing you can do to like learn how to do these things. Like it's a marriage.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. 53%, 55% of marriages end in divorce or something.
Come on, that's a big 50%. Number. I think the number's higher than that.
Yeah, I was like 53. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But I think, I've been asked to manage artists, and I think you kind of take it as like, do I want to be the manager, or do I want to take on all this responsibility? Where a lot of these artists today who don't have management, you can tell.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell, because it's like, oh, let me talk to your manager. I don't have a manager. And then, do you think that is frowned upon in the industry because they don't, or it depends on how they're handling themselves as independent artists?
Yeah, I think it depends on how they're handling themselves.
Yeah.
There are definitely cases where there are artists who manage themselves and they do a better job than someone else managing them.
Yeah.
But I think it also, it's advantageous to have a solid manager rather than managing yourself, because there's so much shit you have to think about all the time. It's just a lot to do. It's an overwhelming job, even if you're just a manager, you're not an artist too. So imagine being a manager and an artist.
Yeah.
And it's not a 9 to 5. It's like, it's not a 9 to 5.
It's 24/7 almost.
24/7.
Yeah.
It's like you get that, text from whomever is making music at 3 a.m. on Saturday night. Like, all right, so it's a world with a lot of high highs and low lows.
And I tell a lot of artists that come here, I think when they come on the podcast and kind of tell their story, and I've did it with Bug, with Feej, and a lot of our comic kings as well. Once the audience knows their story, they feel like they're more personable, with them, and they know a lot more about them. So I feel like when they do know their story, the audience kind of says, I'll go wherever they're at. If you got a concert here, they got merch here, I'm going to do it because I know their story. A lot of these artists that I've noticed are scared to tell the backstory because they don't want them to know too much. What is always like the ins and outs that you guys kind of like say, hey, we want to get this story out there, or to make it more relatable to the audience?
What's interesting is I think a lot of artists who've been doing it for a while think to themselves, any sort of content that I create on social media, I need to have like a super expensive thing to create it and whatever to make this 20-second clip.
Yeah.
And what I would say to people, and what people realize over time, is that the shit that does best is the stuff that feels the most real and the most authentic. And sometimes it
most organic,
costs nothing to make it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just on your iPhone. So, or whatever, Android or whatever.
Yeah.
But, it's like that people go through their days doing all sorts of shit they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right? People don't like their jobs. People have stresses at home, trying to make money, whatever
Personal
it is.
life, everything, whatever it is. Yeah.
So when you're on social media scrolling through, like, you don't want shit that just feels super professional and corporate and fits into that vibe.
Yeah,
fake.
Exactly.
Like, you want something that feels real. And so I do think what you're seeing today is a lot of artists who are able to create core fan bases that they can grow over time, that can sustain them, are doing that through the model of being themselves and adding value to people's lives.
Yeah.
You know, it's really about that. It's adding value to people's lives.
Especially the authenticity and adding the value. And I always say build up the value, especially as an artist, because I get your story with your lyrics and everything like that too. But I'm like, if you don't have the content that kind of like supports what you're talking about, it kind of like you're forcing the audience to go find that realness out of you. So you guys dealing with artists that you deal with today and having to deal with the changing of social media and the way music is perceived nowadays, how are you guys saying, okay, look, if I got a song that's good with my friends, you know, I'm good in the hood. I'm always good in the hood.
Yeah.
But how am I going to get that on, I always say, a mainstream level? Like in island reggae, I say, for instance, in island reggae, it sounds good to the island people all the time because it's accepted by the island people. Mm-hmm. Now, when you want to start getting into the mainstream eyes, into the people that's across the world that's making decisions and doing these festivals, what steps are they missing, do you think, in those aspects of the game?
It's a good question. Honestly, it all does start with creating the record that the core likes the most.
Yes.
And that's whether it's in that scene or it's in Jamaica or wherever it is. Because when you look at the records that have come from Jamaica over the past 15, 20 years that have become quote unquote mainstream, people don't like the word crossed over mainstream, but you know what I mean.
It's taboo.
But like the songs that end up on top 40 radio, right? Like Egyptian, Hold Ya.
Yeah.
Omi, Cheerleader, Party Animal, Charlie Black, Bruck Off Your Back, Conscience. When you think of these different songs, you know, obviously all the early Sean Paul stuff, all these different songs, like they all hit in the core before they did that. Before it
took off.
So the number one thing is like you got to take advantage of whatever the natural resources are of your space first. And think about creating the best version of what those people want to hear. I mean, another example is obviously Let's Do It Again with Boog, right? Like that got to the place it got to after it was embraced at the highest level possible from its core.
Through the rhythm,
and so, and through the rhythm, you can go back and it's the same thing when Sean Paul first broke because the song Get Busy was on the Diwali rhythm. And, you know, basically that was the most poppin' rhythm at the time. And Atlantic, which had the album, they wanted to go with Like Glue, which ended up being the next single. And Sean's team was saying, no, let's go with Get Busy because this is the rhythm that everyone's listening to right
this
now.
is what's hot right now in the streets.
This is what's hot.
Yeah.
And so if we come in on this rhythm, you know, a year later, but it's like everyone's heard these other versions and that's the same song, Wayne Wonder, No Letting Go,
exactly.
Same rhythm. Like, you know, if we come in with that, that's where we're going to be able to go to Miami and go to New York, and go to Toronto and go to our core
right away so it's not diluted by the other artists that are using these rhythms.
Right. And so you're going in and you're going to take advantage of your natural resources, of your scene, of your space, the DJs that are first right there.
Yes.
And if it pops there, then you have the opportunity to go behind. I think a lot of artists, what they do is they think, okay, well, if I get like the biggest, you know, artist from this other space and I make an artist that fits their vibe, then and it's the poppiest version of myself, then it's going to work.
Yeah.
But it has to be the version of the song that your first initial ring of people love the most. Like, it has to be that. I mean, Collie Buddz, Love and Reggae, I think is a great example of that too. It's like it was embraced by not only like the natural resources of the space around him, but it went beyond that and it's continuing to grow because it's existing in these spaces. It's starting to be played in clubs. It's starting to be played on the streets. So I think it's interesting because, you know, your point is, well, you know, there's these island reggae songs and you know, in Hawaii and people think, okay, all these songs sound great and this whole thing. And I think it's like, so, you know, what can be done differently or how can it go further? And honestly, I just think it's not really about doing much different. I think it's just realizing that the best version of the song that your first ring of people are going to love more than any other song is going to be the one with the biggest chance of becoming a mainstream record.
Yes.
And then you go out and you make the remix to go fit this other market.
Exactly.
You know, then, and it's even like...
Speak on that, though. I don't like the remix part. I think is important. Like, a single that comes to mind is Fia, Love Me.
Mm-hmm.
Huge record. I mean, it was like the biggest song, you know, in the Hawaiian demographic, in the Polynesian demographic. And I was like, if this had a remix with another artist, like maybe like Collie Buddz or somebody from another demographic, that it could have went further. And you hear that with a lot of songs that were like your favorite songs, like, oh, if it had, and this is just coming from a DJ aspect from my mind, because you sit there and you're like, wait, is this gonna be, you know, is it gonna be the right fit? So, you know, you have friends that are in the industry to say, oh, they would sound good on this as well. But you don't want to just sit there and throw every Tom, Dick, and Hank on the record. You want to show them that somebody strategic that's going to, okay, I don't want somebody from the same demographic because we're hitting the same audience. We want somebody that's going to reach somebody that's not there. And I think that's when people get into the, oh, okay, they kind of sold out to that demographic. Speak on that if you have a little bit on that to add.
Yeah, and honestly, it's been one of my biggest focuses over the last few years is creating collaborations between people that people wouldn't usually think belong together. And when we did the Cali Roots rhythm, which was a rhythm that Collie Buddz produced, it introduced rhythms to a lot of people who had never heard of that entire culture before. Like a lot of the Cali reggae, American reggae fans didn't know what a rhythm was. People are commenting like, isn't this the same instrumental as
exactly?
I'm like, well,
because people don't really like the rhythms. Like, let's do it again. That major rhythm. You had Sean Paul on that rhythm. You had Taurus Riley on that rhythm. Like, people are like, oh, I didn't know, because you're playing that one that you get behind by Boog. You're playing that in the island reggae demographic. But then you get to the reggae demographics and the Caribbean. Oh, they play the one with Sean Paul. These rhythms are just kind of like, producers put them out there, and whoever hits, right?
Yeah.
And you can either have two that hits or one that hits, but somebody's gonna hit.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But you know, my point is on that is just that first project, that first Cali Roots Rhythm 2020 was, you know, the Anthony B version, Chill Out, was the most successful version. And the Common Kings version, There I Go, you know, these were two completely different spaces.
And why do you think that happened though? Because of what the following was?
Because they created dope versions.
Yes. Come on, tell them, Adam.
Like, so I mean, for, you know, on one end, Anthony B song, right? So the lyrics and the hook mixed with having his vocals over the style of production that Collie and Johnny Cosmic and these guys did. It's like, so like that, people hadn't heard his vocals over production that's in this vibe and this really modern kind of hybrid vibe. So, and then you take it and you say, well, what was Collie's biggest record right before that came out? Love and Reggae. The chorus of Love and Reggae is I just want to smoke, drink, and love my girl to some reggae. The chorus of Chill Out by Anthony B is I just want to dance and listen to some rub-a-dub, chill out and make love to the woman I love to some reggae music.
Similarity.
It's the like they're saying the same thing. So,
but in the Anthony B way and the Collie Buddz way.
But in Anthony, but so it makes sense when Collie's fans are primed for it because it's a Collie production.
Now it's familiarizing
them, and so you know that that's a space that they're gonna like. And then so you know that makes sense, right? And so to your point about these cross-pollinating, it's like, to me, it's about doing collaborations where people might not think they fit together, but they actually do. And I think a lot of what I've been trying to get out there is like trying to bring together all these different scenes that exist. So it's like, yes, we work with a lot of the biggest artists in the island reggae and the Hawaiian reggae space. We work with a lot of the biggest artists in Jamaica. We work with a lot of, you know, biggest artists in Trinidad. You know, it's like most people who listen to soca in Trinidad don't also listen to, you know, Stick Figure and this space. And that group who listens to Stick Figure in this space might not be the same group who goes and listens to dancehall. So these are generally thought of as different scenes. But when you can find songs that, you know, production-wise and vibe-wise can bring these things together, and their fan bases aren't already super overlapped.
And now you're meshing
it. So the whole space is much bigger than people think. So there's this conversation about, you know, 20 years ago, the market share of reggae and dancehall was much greater.
Speak up. This is my next one I want to talk about. Yes.
Really? Okay.
So it goes right into it.
There's this whole like narrative out there, right? That like that the market share isn't as big as it once was. And I don't really buy that necessarily.
Yeah.
I think there's not as much major label interest as there once was, and there aren't as many songs that are going to top 40 radio in the traditional sense. But there's a world of 7-8 billion people now,
Yeah.
right? And is it 8 billion? I think it's 8 billion. And 60 or 70% of those people have access to the internet.
Yeah.
And those who don't also listen to music via radio or
Yeah.
via, sound systems on the streets or
Yeah.
however, right? So music, everybody can be accessed today in a way that it was much harder back then.
Yeah.
You needed to ship CDs around. You needed big marketing costs to distribute stuff. Now you don't. So my thing is there's these individual scenes. Every single island in the world basically makes
Yeah.
some version of reggae.
Exactly.
You have the Solomon Islands, which are outside of Oceania and
Yeah.
outside of Australia, and they've got a band we work with called DMP,
Yeah.
who are dope, and they're like the biggest band in that region. But they're now doing collaborations with, IAZ and Anthony B.
Yeah.
and these different things.
To trying to
It's
cross over into that
and
demographic,
just
yeah.
pull people in,
Yep.
and it sounds like it makes sense. And so when you bring all these different islands together, and you bring together the California and American space and what they're doing and all these different spaces into one
Yeah.
thing, well, it actually can, consumption-wise, stream close to a lot of other genres.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that conversation is missing the idea of bringing everything together
Yeah.
around. And look, there's certain stuff that's like most likely someone who listens to like a hardcore dance hall song isn't the same market as someone who listens to a stick figure song.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? But there are crossover opportunities in other areas.
Yeah.
So it's not about being like, yo, you have to listen to this, or yo, you should listen to this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, everyone listen to what you want to.
Yeah.
But as people get exposed to tangential sounds and tangential scenes, the Venn diagram has more overlapping opportunity than people think. Even like, Sirius XM No Shoes Radio, which is Kenny Chesney's channel.
Yeah.
Kenny
Country
Chesney,
singer.
country singer, huge country singer, has this whole No Shoes Nation vibe. And the kind of tagline is like reggae and country meet at the beach.
Yeah.
People don't think of reggae and country as the same thing, but if you go to No Shoes Radio, they're playing reggae and country.
And it's so huge because the similarities are so like you talk about Maoli. Maoli's another band from that.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a country sound. Like, Glenn, I talk to him all the time. I was like, he sounds like a country singer.
Yep.
But because he's in the island reggae demographic, he's known as island reggae artist. But now he's going on this tour with doing like country music type, fusion. And I think that it goes right back to what you were talking about. It goes to where we have all these different islands. Like, and I always, and you kind of like prettied it up. I'm going to make it. So you have like the surfer reggae, the island reggae, the Jamaican reggae, all these different reggae. And I asked, Kabaka Pyramid, I asked Gramps Morgan about, when Soulja won the Grammy.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like saying, okay, well then it wasn't accepted with the Jamaicans that Soulja won it. And because, Boog was on that album, a lot of people won from that. So how is that looked at in the industry to say, oh, how did Soulja win Best Reggae Album? And I talked to Kabaka about it, who just won Best Reggae Album. And I just talked to Gramps, and they were talking about, they paid their dues. They did what they had to do. What's on being on the record label type side? What is that aspect of what you kind of see what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, when they won, social media from that space was going off,
going crazy. Yeah,
and there is an unfair advantage and an unfair disadvantage. An unfair advantage that American bands have in the U.S.
Yes,
and there is an unfair disadvantage that Jamaican artists have that want to penetrate the U.S.
Yes,
you have to pay 30% of what you make to the U.S. government withheld as an international artist.
Yeah.
Something I've been talking about recently.
That's
is
crazy.
Visa prices.
Yeah.
They're trying to move them up.
Well, just one. Yeah, we did that too. That's going up with the visas, and so you probably won't see your favorite island artists that can't get into the U.S. because they got to pay this visa cost now.
Right.
That's
well,
crazy.
It's proposed. It's not official
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
But yeah, they're raising that by 260%. So from $460 to $1,655.
That's crazy.
So and then there's all sorts of other barriers. So it's like, well, if you're trying to build, if you go to France, the reggae artists that are selling the most tickets in France are from France because they're in France and that's their market they're focused on building. If you go to the US, it's going to be American artists. That's the artists they're focused on building.
Yeah.
So if you're from a island where there's 3 million people and the live scene isn't super popping there, you can't just rely on that. Where do you go build?
Nope,
you have
absolutely.
To all these different places, and you have to fly your whole band out, and you have to fly out. Like, have to cover all these costs. So there's real disadvantages. And I think that is the aspect that needs to be discussed, while also recognizing that, I mean, like Soja put in 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's a award show that's based in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there's a process that you go by to, win
voters,
and get in network and do this whole thing. And I think, what's interesting too is, had the situation been like the opposite, there was one Jamaican artist and 4
nominees.
American bands.
Yeah.
If it was one Jamaican and 4 Americans versus the other way around, the one Jamaican would have won, right? Because think about it like this, right? And I'm not comparing these people in any other way except explaining the math, okay? In the 2016 Republican primary, Trump, you had all of these anti-Trump people, and they were all splitting the vote.
Yeah.
So you had like 12, 15 people on stage, and they're splitting the vote, and then you have this guy who's getting 40% and had all those guys band together at the beginning and had one anti-Trump candidate, then, it's possible that Trump would have lost.
Yeah.
Right? But because you have one person that's pulling together this entire audience and everyone else splitting it, he won. So it's a similar concept. If you have one American band and you have all these different features on it from within the space, and it's a
numbers game at that point.
Yeah. And if you're someone who's more interested in these other ones, or you've worked on a couple of the other albums, it's splitting all the vote. So it's just, my thing is just like, I don't know if I pissed anyone off by saying this. You know what I mean? Like, probably. Yeah. Right? But like, I'm not disrespecting or showing disrespecting anybody. I'm just saying this is how it works.
Yeah, because it's the numbers game at the end of the day.
And that's honestly, like, you asked me like what before, why are you saying all this shit on social media, whatever. It's like, just, there's a way that things work. Yeah. And like, people are afraid.
And I think that's my thing. I think people are afraid of the truth sometimes. And I think when I was going through your Instagram and I kind of seen like, artists kind of look at him like, well, if they don't do any of that stuff, they're kind of behind the 8 ball at that point. And I think you're kind of giving them game, where that's when I hit you. I was like, bro, we need some of this game on the Western Conference podcast, because, with our island artists that watch this as well, and up and coming, hip hop artists that are watching this stuff as well, they need these avenues that you're kind of like giving them game on. Because you're not even affiliated with any of these artists, but all these artists are going through the same struggles, same, things that they're talking about, where if they don't take heed to those, that they're gonna fall by the wayside. And I think what you're doing now with your social media is kind of like, everyone says the game's not to be told, but it's not to be sold. But I think on the flip side of that, you're trying to help these artists more than you are trying to like not help them, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think that if all of these, principles of audience growth, I keep saying it that way, principles of audience growth, if people put these into effect, or if they understand how to make the best A&R decision about which single to drop and how to invest. Something I said is like, if you have 5 singles, don't go out and put like $5,000. If you're a new artist, don't put $5,000 into 5 videos and be in debt to somebody and then drop them, and then each one gets 8,000 views maximum. Like, put out the 5 songs, have some little bunch of short form content for it, have different things to push it, see which one is doing best, and then double down on it.
Push that one,
A/B test, A, B, C, D, E test. Like, test it all out.
Game them up, Adam. Like, game them up.
Same thing with when you're creating content about your songs. Like, if you find something that works for you, double down on that thing. Like, if you're going out and you're like, oh shit, what's my thing? What works for me on short form vertical?
Yeah, do your research and do your own homework. You got to do it. Yeah.
And your homework is testing your own shit. It's like, here's things that have worked for other people. Let me try 8 things out, and the one that works best, let me spend more time on that.
Got it.
So it's just, if people have those shortcuts, you save time, money.
Come on.
Mental health, like everything.
Because they're taking the long way now. They're taking the long way where they don't know that, where these are shortcuts. And it's not like in the shortcuts of the term where you're cheating on a test. These are shortcuts that are going to get you quicker to where you want to be, instead of taking that long road around that everyone's kind of grew up on. The old Motown labels, the old, Death Row and, Bad Boy labels. Now it's kind of like, you're in a world now where YouTube University, social media, all this stuff are all, adding to what you're going to do as an artist, where some of you guys have this, accessibility to it, where you have a guy like Adam that comes from Ineffable saying, look, I'm just telling you guys what's going to be easier, in my opinion. You can take what you take from it, or you don't, you'd have to. But if you take some of it, some of these artists will start noticing a change, in what they're doing. Because I see a lot of people doing the same things on social media, making the same videos. And it's like, guys, what is this? And then they send me music. Hey, can you play my song? Like, okay, you can send it to me, but you're just sending it to me, one person.
Right.
Send it to numerous people and see what they think. Just because I say it's not good doesn't mean that's just my opinion. And I tell a lot of these kids, I don't play it because I don't like this part of it. Oh, you're just being a hater. Nah, I'm telling you the real, because if I don't tell you the real, then someone else is going to blow smoke up your ass, and then you're really going to be behind the 8-ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, to your point, how is somebody hitting you up to send you the song?
Yes.
Right?
Come on, Adam. Don't let me I'll flip this desk over right now. I get people sending me YouTube videos, right? They'll send me a YouTube link. No name of the song, no producer, none of it. Then I'd be like, hey, can you send me a little bit more information? I shouldn't, any DJ, anybody you're sending music to, shouldn't have to ask for more information.
Yeah.
They should have everything they need right in front of them when you send them the first time. First time is first impression. If you're a kid and you're an artist, you send me music and you have everything I need, I'm going to look at it more than somebody just sends me a YouTube or a Spotify link.
For sure.
And I'm like, okay, well, what's this going on? So that just goes on where, being a DJ, being, a record label, where these artists, they want to do it, but they're not doing it the right way. And I'm not being a hater by telling them not, and I don't think you're being a hater by sharing what you're sharing. I think it's going to help them once they look and read between the bullshit they're thinking that we're giving them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like, what I like to say is like, I like to stay on the persistent side of annoying.
Yes.
Like
persistent side of annoying. I like that.
I also like that too.
Yeah, right, Amber? Thank you.
like in order to build new relationships, which is a big part of what I'm doing on a week-to-week basis, like you got to follow up with people.
Yeah.
Right? You want to follow up enough and in the right way that they're like, I respect this person, maybe a little bit annoying, but like I respect it.
Absolutely.
Not like, fuck this guy, I'm going to blacklist them. I'm never, you know what I mean? Like I'm never going to see their shit again. And so it's like, how are you hitting people up? And it depends on who they are. There might be a certain way that you should hit up a DJ. There might be a certain way you should hit up a DJ in a certain market. There might be a certain way you should hit up
Take notes,
contact
kids.
at Apple Music. So it's like, okay, it popped into your head that you should send this song to somebody, and you have their phone number.
Yeah.
Should you text them, if you're a brand new artist, should you text them that song at 1 a.m.
Yes.
Tuesday night?
Come on, man.
No.
Yeah. Be smart about
Be
it,
smart.
right? Yeah.
Because if then you get that text and you're like, I don't need this push notification.
Exactly.
Right now. It pops up on your screen and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
I don't
Everything's
want
timing. Everything's strategic.
Yep.
You know what I mean, Adam? And it goes back to when to send a song, how to send a song. A lot of people in the island demographic, when they send me a song, I'm like, okay, what's the plan for this? When I try to get into, elaborating on what you want to do as an artist, like I kind of look at these, and it goes back to the young Polynesian hip hop artists that I deal with. I love island reggae. I love feel good music. But when a hip hop artist is talking about, gang banging here, stealing here, that's just something that doesn't turn me on.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's not going to sell somewhere else, but I tell them, I don't play that, but I'm going to be honest with these kids. You know what I mean? So is honesty sometimes not always the best policy in the music industry?
Sometimes not. You got to know who you're dealing with because, look, at the end of the day, people are, these are human beings who are creating art that's usually based off of, some real thing that you're going through.
Yeah, hence the word artist.
Mental health is a really serious thing that artists deal with, that people in the business deal with. It's as I said, it's a lot of high highs and low lows in the music business.
Yeah.
Because these artists are experiencing, that one big show that they play, and then you feel this, and then you don't have another big show again, or you have this one song that got a good reaction, or you did that one social post that got a lot of likes, and then the next 3 social posts didn't, and you think you've fallen off. So,
and I think that's what social media does to these artists. You get a lot of, people watching one video and they don't watch the next video. We can't control the algorithm. I mean, unless there's people that think they can, but I always tell artists, you can't control the algorithm. So just keep constantly putting content out there. That's going to fit your brand. It's going to fit you and what you're doing with the music. If you're not constantly putting that, you get kind of dropped down by the wayside again because you're not staying on top of it. I tell these kids, post every day. I don't want to do too much because then you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
So I say when I say post content, it's not just anything and everything. It's content about what your brand is, content about what your music is, on what upcoming shows you have. This kid Craig, my nephew Craig, just did Rolling Loud.
Nice.
He was a poly artist that came up and coming, and he just got his shot at Rolling Loud. But now I say, hey, now you got to do content from here on out to kind of keep your name out there to everybody. What do you say to somebody that's trying to get on the Cali Roots, trying to get on a Levitate, music festival, to say, okay, what could they do that to get on there?
Well, the best thing you can do for these kind of festivals is to build your hard ticket history.
Yes.
So a lot of
Say it
people
again, Adam.
build your hard ticket history.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't know what hard ticket history is, or they don't understand why certain bands are always on certain festivals and other ones aren't. And the reality is hard ticket history is how many tickets do you sell in a market when you're the headliner of your own show.
Man.
So you go in and you play.
This is going to be a clip right here. Just to let you guys know. This is going to be definitely a clip.
So you go in and play, a club show that doesn't have a built-in audience.
Yes.
It's not like, we have like Tuesday night Afrobeats night or something like that. It's like, no, this is your show. People are going to buy tickets to your show in this market. How many tickets can you sell at what ticket price is it?
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, well, we have 150 hard tickets here. And then the next time you come to that market, the promoters know how much you're worth, and so you can get paid more. And if there's people looking for opening slots on tours, you can say, well, I'm worth 150 tickets in this market, and I'm worth 28 in this market.
The verbiage is everything.
Yep.
The
hard tickets.
You're talking about tickets, hard ticket. If I come to you and say, man, I sold out my church function last week.
Right.
We don't have those numbers. No. I saw all my friends came to my garage the other night. Those are not the numbers we're talking about. When you're an artist and you're selling out these shows that are being tallied up where the hard ticket count matters, that's what these artists are missing. I think just because you did a community show that it was sold out, that doesn't count towards your numbers, towards saying, hey, how can I get on Cali Roots? These are the numbers I have. Okay, now we're looking at the hard ticket. Now, maybe they can come on here and be an opener. And I think that's what they're missing.
Yeah, and at the same time, any festival will bring in artists that might not be worth as many tickets because they want to, you still want to kind of like curate a vibe that you're looking for. Yeah. So you still might book stuff just like to have a really dope festival lineup. But ultimately, a festival needs to sell tickets, and the best predictor of being able to sell tickets is how many tickets can the artist sell in the market.
Man, if you ain't speaking the gospel right now, Adam, come on. That's what these festivals are all about. I mean, I get these kids like, oh man, I'd be dope on that festival. What could you do for the festival as a whole, as in general? So,
and I think part of the problem with that hard ticket game is that a lot of artists weren't taught about that hard ticket game. Yeah. And even very established artists, like 10, 15, 20 years into their career. And so they'll be like, oh no, I only do a show for this much money. My cost is this much money. And then
without the history,
because you might not be some artists aren't really hard ticket artists. They're more, they go play festivals and you have some hits. And so you have value because you bring a certain thing to the festival, but you aren't necessarily selling tickets in that market. So, it's like, I'm not going to go and build my hard ticket history. But if you go and build your hard ticket history and maybe make some less money in the process of doing that, later on, you'll have more worth to be able to make more money in those markets. But again,
you're building your portfolio.
But that means sitting back and say, you know what, I might make less money this year, and I might make less money in the next 2 years, but it's so that I can get in the game and basically be in a position where in 3 years and 5 years I can make more money. And now the problem is a lot of artists aren't making money from other aspects of their business, so they can't go and play those proper
Speak on the other avenues, Adam. Speak on these other avenues they should be.
Yeah, so it's like if you are making all your money from touring because somebody else owns your masters, somebody else owns all your publishing, and and so you can be in a situation where someone owns your masters and your publishing because you sold it to them and you developed an asset and sold it, and it can make sense and it totally makes sense. But you can also be in a situation where like a lot of artists, a lot of the biggest songs that like that artist makes $0 a month from that song.
Come on.
So like if you're making $0 a month from the biggest record of your career, then
how am I going to make money off of that? How are you going to make money?
You have to go play the shows that pay you the most today. If you are making money from your streaming every month and from your publishing and from your music, then you can go out and play shows where you might go lose money and tour in that market to build it over time. You can go overseas and like it might look like there's a lot of people there, but the expenses to get overseas is expensive. So people lose money on tours. But you do that to go build that market and then go back and play bigger shows or go back and headline after doing it as an opener. You can't do that if you don't have other income avenues. Sources. It's really difficult to do that. How's your merch game, right? Do you have a really big merch game? And is your merch focused on building a brand and a vibe, or are you just constantly trying to sell shit? Yeah. Nobody wants to log onto social media and see that all you're doing is posting flyer, that you're
Yeah.
selling something and it's just all sales, right? But if you're giving people value a lot and just kind of posting, you know, cool shit that people want to interact with and that provides value to their lives, makes their lives better, then it's more likely they're going to feel like they want to return the favor and have you be a part of their lives.
Yep, the return ratio right there, because you get them coming back to want more of what you're selling them.
Fan karma meter.
Come on, the fan karma meter. Say it again. Come on, the fan karma meter is big.
If I don't give Thomas any credit for this, he's gonna be like, "You said the fan karma meter and didn't give me credit again." So
Thomas, this is Thomas from Thomas.
I feel like Thomas is the first person who called it the fan karma meter.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do our research on that
claim
one.
it.
But going back to the industry we're talking about, now they have the avenues of merch. And now, you know, these artists that are watching right now are like, okay, they're writing down all these things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
How are they taking advantage of their Spotify plays? Because I get artists all the time saying, oh, well, I'm hot on Spotify, but not so much on Apple Music. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the different platforms have different growth hacking strategies.
Got it. This is what we want.
So it's like certain things might make it easier to grow on one platform, and certain things might make it easier to grow on another platform. Now, going back to what you had to say about algorithms, right?
Yes.
So what's hard to control if you're a new independent artist or a developing artist is editorial placements and trying to get somebody to support your song and thinking like, if I get a playlist, then that's what's gonna, you know, fix everything and I'm gonna be set. And the reality is that's not necessarily the case. You know, what you really want to be focused on are the things that you can actually control. So, you know, instead, you made the point earlier about, you know, posting on social media every day and kind of, you know, we can't control the algorithm, but we can kind of feed it and we don't know what's gonna work. So same things if you're a developing artist on streaming platforms. Like, drop consistently, not every single week, but like, you know, if you don't have any fans yet, then you should be dropping all the time, because it's like, if you just drop an album, no one's gonna listen to it.
You got to build that fan base.
If you just keep dropping singles, then like, okay, someone might go and check out 30 seconds of it, right? And so over time, if you're dropping consistently, you know, every month or so or whatever it exactly is, then if those songs are doing well, then the DSPs are going to push them on the algorithms more.
Yeah.
And, you know, there is a point where it gets oversaturated, because if you start dropping stuff that's not as good, then it's not going to recommend your new music as much, because those people that it recommended your past music to didn't like it that much.
See?
So that's where the quality and the quantity, both things do matter, because it's like, you got to drop consistently if you're new and have as many at-bats to be able to get on base as possible. But if some of those at-bats you're taking with like one arm, then like, it's going to, I can't keep this as a baseball analogy the whole way through.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, if you take that, you know, if one of those at-bats you're taking with one arm, then basically like, it's going to make it seem to the platform that like people don't like your music as much as they did in the past. And so the next release isn't going to be pushed as hard.
Got it.
So that's what you got to think about. And then in terms of collaborations, right? So if you're going to tap in a collaboration and like you put all this work into it, and maybe you had to pay them money. Maybe you had to pay them in something else. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
you know,
whatever you got to do to get that feature.
You want to make sure that when you drop it, like you're actually tapping into their audience.
Yeah.
And also that like that song fits that person's audience. You know, we talked about this a little bit before. It's like, don't just get the biggest artist on the song. Get the artist whose fan base is going to like the song most.
Yes.
And the artist who has a big core, because you could have an artist with like, you know, 5 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then they might have like, you might go to their followers on Spotify, which says, okay, we only have 30,000 followers. Which is also, you know, legit. But the other artist might have 2 million monthly listeners and 500,000 followers. The artist with 2 million monthly listeners and 500,000 followers is going to be a more worthwhile feature, because their audience isn't all built around probably 1 or 2 or 3 records. So things can be inflated, you know, monthly listeners, stuff like that can be inflated based around you had that 1 or 2 or 3 big songs, or you were tagged as what's called a primary artist on somebody else's song, and that song was really big. And you actually go to that person's popular tracks, and it's like, okay, well, all the songs are somebody else's songs. And so it's inflating that number. And so maybe someone's like, oh, well, that's worth this much money for a feature or something like that. But in reality, you got to look at the other other metrics. Same thing with like social media following. It's like, well, you have to understand how things over-index and under-index in different markets and different platforms. So what that kind of means is like certain areas around the world are more likely to listen to certain use certain DSPs.
Yeah.
So like you could be like, well, this person gets, you know, 1 million streams a month on Apple Music, but they only get 2,000 streams a month on Spotify. That would be that's probably unlikely, but you know, really.
Well, the numbers aren't adding up. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could say, well, they have, you know, 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, but they've got like 3 million subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so you say, well, it looks like, well, let's see where this artist is from. Okay, well, they're from Jamaica and they are kind of a core artist there that's really popping in Jamaica, making these, you know, what they call choppa tunes, which is kind of like the type of songs that are really taking off locally right now, which is kind of like, they call it like trap hall.
Yeah.
And that's what's really hot in the streets. And like if you go to the YouTube charts there, like that's what people are really listening to. And that's what's getting
that trap hall. Yeah.
It's popping, right? But Spotify isn't as much of a thing in Jamaica. So it doesn't necessarily translate over there. So if someone was only looking at the numbers based around Spotify, it wouldn't really show the true worth.
It wouldn't resonate. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just about understanding how certain platforms and numbers can over-index and under-index based off of the genre, the vibe, the location, all sorts of factors.
Yeah. And like what like, so when we talk about the numbers and everything that these artists are looking at, like Ineffable, like as opposed to saying have somebody as an independent or a major, what is independent doing for artists that majors aren't doing for artists?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say all majors versus all independents because there's just so many different things.
Different elements.
What I would say specifically I can speak to most is us.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we're focused on is specifically, you know, how do we take you from point A to point B to point C to point D? Like how, if you join the squad and you're at, you know, you have 100,000 listeners in a month, like how do we get you to 200,000?
To the next level,
right? Like, do I see the path to do that? Do I feel like, you know, with our network and our skill set and your music and your drive and all these things that if we all come together, I can see how we can, you know, really double, triple, you know, continue to grow your audience, right? And the other thing I look at is, do I feel like if you upload it by yourself, because here's the thing, you can upload your music by yourself to something called like DistroKid, where you pay like $50 or something, like some sort of fee, and you can keep 100% of the revenue. So there are distributors out there who will be like, all right, send me your music and I'll take 12% or 20%.
Yeah, whatever the percentage is.
It's like, well, what is there a value that they're adding? If they're going to pitch for placements or playlisting, or they're going to provide money, or, you know, there's all sorts of things that people can provide. But if all you're trying to do is send the music and then have it be distributed to the platforms, you probably shouldn't be paying 10 or 12 or whatever percent. You should just pay that flat fee. So I think, okay, well, whatever percentage we're asking for, do I feel like we're going to make the pie so much bigger that their slice of the pie is going to put more money in their pocket than if they kept 100, right? Because if we work together, we're going to need to be getting some sort of percentage of the revenue that you're making from your streaming. So if we're working together and we're collecting some percentage of revenue from your streaming, I need to feel pretty confident that that's going to put more money in your pocket than if you just upload it by yourself, right? I can't be right. I'm not. You can't be right 100% of the time, right? You're not always right. You don't always win.
Exactly.
You will lose.
It's going to be on a case-to-case basis.
But, you know, usually we're able to project pretty well and make sure that those situations happen. And I think that it's about that value add. And I think that's the value add proposition that should be the kind of general way people think about the music business. It's like if you can, you know, tell me that like, okay, you're going to, you know, multiply my value of this shoe that I'm wearing by 100,000 from like, you know, if you're gonna tell me you can make this shoe 100,000 worth more, and you're like, all right, I can make this 100,000 times more, but I'm gonna ask for 80% of it, I'd be like, okay, well, yeah, I can't make the shoe.
Exactly.
The shoe's going to only get less in value. So, it's just about finding the situation. Now, we would never ask for 80%.
Yeah.
But, I'm just giving an example.
He was like, wait a minute.
But, a lot of the major label structure, and you have to understand the business model of it and the assets that they own and how do we get to this place. So essentially the majors are making the overwhelming majority of their money from catalog.
Yeah.
So music that's from 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And catalog music is worth more than new music because the way that music assets are valued, you apply multiples to them based off of how many years of history you have on it. So if a song came out 3 years ago and is streaming really well, I don't know if it's going to stream well in 10 years.
Exactly.
So it's going to depreciate in value over time. But if you have a Bruce Springsteen song or a Whitney Houston song or Sting or you have
or even Bob Marley, Legend's always number one on Apple.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the value on that catalog, it's like it's a huge multiple that they're applying to it. So they have this huge valuable catalog. And so a lot of the focus is, okay, well, are there ways that we can continue to raise the value of these things that already exist? So that can be through covers or remixes or things like that, or TV syncs or movie placements. So, and then secondarily, it's, well, let's go to TikTok. And this is the song that blew up last night independently. Yeah. Oftentimes, usually independently. And
TikTok's
you can't predict
crazy
it.
with that.
Yeah, you can't predict it. And then once that happens, that artist and their team, if they have a team, because it's oftentimes they don't, it's a new thing, will get hit up by A&Rs at every single major label and independents too. And be like, okay, we're going to give you this advance and then do this, and we're going to prioritize you and all these different things, because there becomes this battle over market share. Yeah. So
selling you the dream.
Yeah, but it's selling you the dream, but a big reason why that it's being done is because at the end of the year, there's a pie chart that comes out and says Universal has this percentage of the pie, and Warner has this, and Sony has this, and the independents have this. So they're going out and they want to go out and pull in records that are going to increase their market share. But the songs that popped on TikTok 2 weeks ago oftentimes are being overvalued and overpaid for the sake of that market share and for the sake of winning. Yeah. Because in reality, if it's not a timeless record, it's not going to be listened to in 5-10 years. So you can have a song pop for a month.
Yeah, it's an at the time record.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them obviously become hits and do have timeless vibes and continue going. One thing I've been hammering down on socials is this record called People by Libianca, which is a sick song. It's became the biggest Afrobeat song in the world. And it blew up overnight on TikTok. And she posted a little clip of it, and it's kind of going through her mental health issues and different things going on, and said, hey, here's a song about what I'm feeling right now, and posted it, and it got millions of views overnight. And there was a bidding war for it, and it went up, and it was the most Shazammed Afrobeat song 4 days after release. It was nuts, Yeah. And I saw it at the time, and I was like, I took a screenshot of my phone because I was seeing all the numbers, this is about to blow up. Yeah. And I was like,
kind of new.
She had it was 5 days later, but she had 50,000 monthly listeners at that time or something on Spotify. And I'm like, all right, let me screenshot this. I'm going to send it to people. I'm like, remember, I've told you this. Yep. Be that annoying ass guy. But so I did that, and I started looking at her stuff. And I'm like, well, so Sony had gotten the record, and
Sony was the winner.
Yep. And I went and I saw on her Spotify that she had no bio in there and no social media links. Yeah. Now, if you pull up any artist's Spotify, you can very easily go into Spotify for Artists, type out your bio, and then there's a space where you can link your Instagram, Wikipedia, Twitter, all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, she is having all of this attention drawn to this song. People are hearing it. Not only are they discovering it on TikTok, it's being Shazammed. So they're hearing it in clubs. They're hearing it on radio. They're hearing it all these places. So people are going to the Spotify.
And nothing's coming up.
They go to then they go to the About section, and there's no links or bios. And I'm like, oh no. So, I DM'd her manager. Yeah. And I was like, yo, I'd love to talk to you. And I don't have any hidden agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yo, I saw these things. So I talked to him. I did tell him at the time. And you should add these things. And they didn't. And so weeks later, that's why I posted this clip about it. I was like, this is the problem with the major label model, because you can have this song, which now has hundreds of millions of streams. Wow. It's huge.
And then they go to About, and there's nothing there.
They go to About, and now there's a bio as of a couple days ago, but there's no social media links.
Yeah.
And it's because the label's focus is we got the song, we got it in, so now we're gonna keep pushing the song.
Keep pushing the
But
song.
who knows if that artist is gonna be huge in X amount of years? They don't necessarily care about that. So, that's why I posted it, because like I tried on the inside.
Because why not take advantage of that hype and get them familiarized with the artist?
Right.
Because maybe she has something else that's gonna come out.
And if you're the artist and the major gave you this big advance and that's how you got the record and all these different things, and you're not popping at that same level, because like to have another hit of this size, it's possible.
Yeah.
And I don't want.
It's tough though.
But like odds, if we're just plain odds, most
tough.
likely, right? So it's like, but what you can do right now to get all these email addresses and get all these phone numbers and create contests and sell merch and start planting those
so many
seeds,
missed opportunities.
Yeah. And I don't blame the artist, because this is such an overwhelming thing that's going on. And again, the song came from a mental health situation, and I can't imagine what someone's going through when you go from all of a sudden the whole world playing your song. And the manager, it's like, he should by now know better, but at the same time, the label could easily just be like, yo, here are these kind of basic things that we go through. There'll be checklists here.
Quick blueprint.
Quick blueprint. Like, yo, just make sure you're doing these things.
Yeah.
But it's just not in the business model.
Yeah. Come on. And I think a lot of artists that are watching this need to know that. Like, those little things can go a long way.
Yeah.
Because you never know when a song is going to hit. You never know when TikTok's going to just go crazy with a viral video or something like that, too. For artists that's watching now and seen everything we've been talking about, what advice as a kid that's coming here watching our podcast right now saying, Adam, I'm a hungry artist. What can I do to make myself better? Are you going to see what their intangibles are at that point?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think one is what you just said. It's focus on all the little things.
Come on.
Because there are things that you can control more so than hoping that someone signs you or that someone discovers you. So focus on learning how to do all the little things. Literally go on YouTube and search how to grow on every single platform and watch the YouTube videos about it. Like, it's insane what you can learn on YouTube, right? I mean, you don't want to end up like thinking the world is flat, but
yeah, exactly. But you can learn so much from YouTube University. Yes.
So it's like, go down those rabbit holes and learn everything you can. And then in terms of, your music, obviously go out there and be in person in as many different places as possible. Go meet people, meet other artists, meet other producers, meet other writers, go and do writing sessions with other people. You provide them feedback, them provide you feedback. Like, be willing to take in feedback and not just think everything that you do is dope.
Yeah, exactly. Take constructive
be willing
criticism.
To take constructive criticism. And then work. You just got to work. You got to work. You got to work. And, it's got to be what you do. You can have, you need your hustle, right? You need to find a way to make money, but the music element of it is not going to fund itself for a while, for a long time. So, you need to make it your focus of all the time you can.
And investing in yourself.
And investing in yourself besides, what you need to do to be able to live, and invest what you have into your art and focus on planting those seeds and growing them over time and finding the right people to be around. And just keep your head up, because don't take one loss so seriously. Don't take one loss so seriously. Like, you never know how many losses you will go through before you first win. It's like the whole Michael Jordan getting rejected from the JV basketball team or whatever. It's like or the varsity team. It's like, you don't know. So just keep swinging the bat and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, and don't give up. Because you never know what that next thing is. And if you do all the fundamentals, your odds of going viral are much higher. That's the thing.
The numbers are in your favor.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't try to go viral.
Yeah.
But if you want to go viral, your odds of going viral are going to be much better if you're doing all the fundamentals. So do the fundamentals.
And don't overdo it. I mean, this is all my opinion, because I think forced, when you're not having anything organic and it's not just coming from like a good place, that look, these artists that are watching this that tell me all the time, when you're gonna have somebody talk about, the record business, which I got Adam here, and that's why I did it, is because all those at bats, one of those, somebody gonna hit a home run.
Right.
And it could come from the most least play that you would least expect it from, where there's so much talent in this world. And I think, people tell me this all the time, sometimes less people that has less talent are get more fortunate than people that have more talent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because they're doing other things
100%.
that they're not just focusing on what the talent is at hand. And that's what I think a lot of you kids out there are focusing more. Look, I'm not saying you don't have talent. I'm saying talent is just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
If you have all these other aspects of it and you're doing, you're going down these rabbit holes and you're listening to Adam's posts on his Instagram, you're going to do yourself better because you're kind of making yourself better as an artist.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is finding your sound and your target audience and sticking to it.
Man.
That's a really key thing.
Say that again, Adam.
Finding your sound and your target audience and sticking to it. And look, I get it. Everyone's influenced by different things, and I'm not here to tell anybody to not make a song that feels like there's something they want to get out and say at all, right? But if you want to grow a fan base, you need to find something that they know what to expect from you and that you get better at what that is over time, right? Like you need to be in a situation where like it's creating a fan base. I mean, think about, the example we talked about before of Moly.
Yeah.
Like he found a sound.
Yep.
I mean, a sound and a target audience, and then you go in on that shit, right?
All in.
Stick Figure, like finds a sound and then gets better at it every single year. He's a producer first and foremost. So he focuses on getting better at production every year. So if every single Stick Figure album does better than the one before, because you could go and listen to it and be like, yep, this is a guy who's gotten better at production. And the next album, he's going to be even better at production.
And he's learning and advancing himself every time.
It's always going to get better, but it still has the vibe that people come to expect from it. It's you got to have the vibe and the thing that people expect from it, but get better and better and better.
Always get better, because I'm telling you, your talent's going to take you there. But if you know these little things that Adam and these gems that he's been dropping, watch the podcast again, because I'm telling you, it was definitely a joy to have you here, Adam, man. I appreciate everything you do, because follow him on Instagram right now. I'm telling you, his gems that he's been dropping over there is what caught my eye, because we were supposed to do it at Cali Roots, but we got busy at Cali Roots. But definitely see him over there, man. Buy my man a beer next time you see him over there. Thank you, my brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is great.
Come on, man. Adam Gross, Big Body Cisco, Dos Caras Tequila, Western Conference Podcast. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.